Hey everyone, it's Kate Stillman with Yoga Healer, and it's Kate with Yoga Healer and Yogi Detox, and I'm here with Laura Waite. And Laura, you posted on the forum yesterday, and I thought it would be fun to answer your question live and also to talk and get to know you. So what you posted is, I am experienced numerous positives from detoxing and being in community. Every day there's a new surprise. My biggest win is shedding 18 pounds since the January Wild Habits Challenge. And having my doctor refer to me this week as someone light like you. I wouldn't go right to light, but it wasn't hard to hear. So let's talk about that, and then we'll talk about your question. So you're a second grade school teacher.
That's right.
And they keep you busy. So tell me a little bit about, like, first of all, I mean, often people don't, like, we don't promote weight loss, right? Like, that's not what attracts people to us. It's usually like people just want to feel better. So what was going on? Like, if you presence yourself before the challenge in January, just like where were you at? What was going on?
Well, I have been, I was diagnosed 3 years ago with lupus. And so I have been working on cutting out meds. And I think when I got into the challenge and started listening, I thought,
what were your symptoms? I'm just going to interrupt. What were your symptoms when you were diagnosed with lupus that you went looking for a diagnosis, or how did that come about?
Well, I'd already been diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. It was mixed connective tissue disease. It could never really be, it wasn't any one thing. It was a few different things. And I was on a maintenance dose of prednisone for a long time, a really low dose. And I eventually went off that and then went on another medication and ended up having a flare up. So it was in my chest. And if I took a breath, I would make these noises. It was really hard to teach. And it got to the point where it was hard to get dressed, like hard to get my jacket on. My colleague had to help me one day. I'd have to strategize, like, how am I going to get into school? How am I going to get my bag in there? How am I going to get me in there? It was exhausting. I got better, but I was taking a lot of meds. And
when was the first diagnosis, the first autoimmune and the first medication?
It was it was over a decade ago.
Okay.
And then it became clear that it was more lupus-like.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so then so fast forward to before, between 3 years ago and January. So you're trying to get off meds for the lupus.
Yeah, just trying to get healthier. I was, I gained weight. And yeah, I just wasn't feeling great. And I just thought that, there's got to be a better way. And my colleague, Pamela Marshall, who you may remember from Maine.
Yeah, I remember Pamela.
Yeah, so
Pamela.
She
that was a while ago. I think she did the Living Ayurveda course like over 10 years ago or so, a while back.
Yeah. So she and I have been talking for years. She's a stone's throw away from my classroom. So so she got me, fired up. And so that's why I got started.
I'll reach out to her. Okay. So then what made a difference? Because losing the weight and saying that you're experiencing numerous positives, like what's happening and what's working?
Yeah. So just, having all the resources, I think, trusting the process and having a few questions. Like every time in the challenge when I would get stuck or I'd want to eat something that wasn't the best for me, I would say, okay, how do I want to feel tomorrow? And that was such a great question, because it really prevented me from putting things in my body that were only going to be good for, a minute or two, and then they weren't going to be any good.
It's so funny. I was remembering yesterday, like just yesterday, I was remembering my aunt had this really funny sticker on her refrigerator, and it was a moment on the lips, forever on the hips. And I must have read that when I was like 8 years old, and it just burned a hole in my psyche. So yeah, right? Like that sense of like, okay, there's a term, I don't know if you've heard it. I just was writing about it in Wild Habits, called a Ulysses contract. And it's a reference to Ulysses when he's he's on the Odyssey and he knows he's going by the sirens and he doesn't want to be lured in because, again, like the hedonistic pleasure of doing that would set him basically into a stuck place. You can't leave. You don't escape the sirens. So he had his shipmates tie him to the front of the boat, so that when the sound of the sirens came in, he wouldn't be basically sacrificing his future self for current moment pleasures.
Mm.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you. So was it the group momentum? Because this is something, I mean, I've been talking about it for a really long time. Like the power of the posse is what I used to call it, like maybe 10 years ago. Power of the posse. Like there's something else that happens when we do this together. What's your experience of that, Ben?
Yeah, so it's interesting because in January, I would have said, I don't know, I'm sort of tiptoeing into this and watching the videos and, do I really feel the community? I know they're out there, I'm kind of watching it, but now there's no question that, I'm watching everything, I'm reading everything, I'm listening, I'm connecting more. And yeah, it's just so powerful. But even in January, when I wasn't as connected, there were times when I made the best choice because of the community. Even though nobody was watching, nobody would have known. I knew, and it's like, that's my own integrity. And that's like, I didn't want to be an imposter. Like, if I'm going to be in this group and I'm going to commit, I'm going to commit. And I don't know, there's something about knowing that the group is all doing this at the same time and I'm part of this, that I want to do it too.
Yeah, I feel the tide as a member, as a leader and as a member, right? And I'm very much in my experience as a member when I'm not leading. And it's like, I was talking to Megan and Brenda, who were mentors in the Yoga Detox this morning, and Megan just finished a 7-day fruit and vegetable fast and did a gallbladder liver flush, and she's posting the pictures in the Body Thrive forum of like the gallstones that came out. And I was comparatively to her like slacking a bit, and there is that sense of there's people in the group that go really hard always. And it leads the rest of us, including my sorry ass sometimes, of just like, oh, right. And I've done all that. I've done all the things. I've done extended fasting, water fasting, et cetera. But like, I don't do that every time. But when I hear a story like that, when we're in the group doing a thing, whether it's the challenge or whether it's the Yogi Detox, there's this invitation into depth, and it feels like a current, or it feels like a gravitational pull. That's what I'm hearing and what you're describing too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So what symptoms are going away? I guess I have two questions. Like, one are like, what symptoms are starting to go away? My other question is, what symptoms, when you look back at your 10-year history with autoimmune disease, do you see as like some of that was optional, like some of that was diet and lifestyle driven?
I think a lot of it probably was. I think I have a regret about taking prednisone for so long, because then I developed osteoporosis, even on a really low dose. But my symptoms, I was really doing well. I've been fortunate. I had a flare up when I was diagnosed. It was funny because my doctor looked at my tongue and there was this big bald spot, like the size of a quarter. I describe it as a bald spot. And she said, oh, an Eastern doctor would have fun with you at that time, diagnosing you.
That's
And
cool that they knew that.
yeah. And she said, but I'm referring you to a rheumatologist. And I had a big swollen knuckle. And that was it. And then I had a couple of bouts of just tiredness, weakness. But it was like days, not, it didn't go on for a long time. They put me on, the prednisone. And I wished that I'd asked more questions then, because I don't think I needed it. I moved to India for 3 years, and the whole time I was there, I was taking this low dose, and I don't think I needed it. Yeah, I was doing fine. And I've gone from taking 3 meds down to 1. And this week, my doctor, when he told me I was somebody light like me, what he said was, we need to reduce your medication because somebody light like you shouldn't be taking that dose. I just want to laugh and say, well, that's a sad statement about Americans. If I'm light, I'm 150 pounds and 5'3". It's not exactly light, but as I said, it wasn't hard to hear. So,
but it's lighter than you were when he put you on that dosage, right?
Yes. Yeah. But again, I wouldn't have gone right to light. I would have just said lighter. But
yeah. But it's a really good point because the heavier someone is, the more medication, right? In order to get efficacy with the medication is often used. And the same thing's true with herbal medicine, right? And
right.
I always find with herbal medicine, it's like, if you're not getting the effect, increase the dose, increase the frequency, like see what it can do. So just to the point, you can do more with less now. And that is one of the signs of, it's the opposite of entropy. It's enthalpy. It's one of the signs of like your system is organizing into a higher order. So you can do more with less. It always organizes towards efficiency.
Yeah. Yeah. And I hadn't even thought of that. What I have thought of though, is my goal is to be the person I want to be is lupus undiagnosed, April 12th, 2023. So I told this to my doctor, and he knows this is my goal. And he's not as excited as I am about being undiagnosed.
How come? Has he worked with people that have been disillusioned? Is that part of it, where he doesn't want you to get your hopes up?
I think in his experience, these aren't exactly the words he said, but it's not what happens, that people have flare-ups if they try to go off their meds. So he said, well, that's not what the literature supports. And I said, well, last time we talked about a woman who was, because I finally started asking the questions that brought me the answers that I wanted. Has anyone ever been undiagnosed? I never thought of that when I was diagnosed. I thought, I'm a person who's been diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, and that's who I am for life. And I'll have to take this medicine, and I'll have to be careful about this, and I'll, whatever. And now I just don't think that way. Like, I'm a person who was diagnosed, but I'm a person who will be undiagnosed. So
the question I would have for him is, are the studies done with diet and lifestyle modifications? Because that will help, and it'll help him or her look for, and this is where what I think is so exciting right now is because of the internet, right? Because of the internet, and because so much scientific literature, thank God, is published on the internet. Thank gosh too, because a lot of it is publicly funded, so it all should be, but it not all is. We get people like you and I who, will search for answers, and then we'll ask better questions. And so what I'm hearing and what you're saying is that from the process that you've been through, and and stimulated in part by the challenge and the yoga detox that we do at Yoga Healer, you're asking better questions and you're more in control of your future. You're making different decisions. You're noticing the different outcomes from those different decisions rather than being in the seat of the consumer, you're in the seat of the creator of your health. So the way you're interfacing with support, including the support of our group, including the support of your doctors, is at a higher level. It's more organized.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And it was interesting because, none of this community was there with me, but I felt it. It's like, it was just the two of us, my doctor and myself, in the room. And when I said, my plan is to be undiagnosed, what do you think of that? And I thought, and you don't know this, but I got a whole bunch of people behind me here supporting it.
There's a tribe here. Some people don't like that word, but it feels like it. It feels like that. Yeah. Yeah. No, there's a power to that. And I interviewed Peter Block on the podcast that just came out last week. And he's devoted his life to understanding community. And a lot of what drives community is asking the most important question, like asking better questions. And that's exactly what you're doing with your doctor. And so it'll actually drive his or her way of practicing. Like it'll change their thinking. They'll see different research. They'll look at things different ways. And that to me is such a powerful part of, like, when we're in community and we're awake and alive, it actually stimulates out through our other communities. So even though at Yoga Healer, we're all online and virtual, although we do meetups, and we love it when we connect in person, and give Pamela a big hug for me, because there's like that realness. But it actually trickles through families, and here it's like trickling through how you're interfacing with your practitioners.
Yeah.
That's huge. So what are the habits now that your keystone habits? Like, what are like the ones that you're like, I do this because this works for me now?
My kitchen's closed at 6, so that earlier, lighter dinner. And I had to shift that pattern of eating my bigger meal at night. I mean, now I just have little meals, but when I'm not detoxing, if I'm going to have a bigger meal, it's going to be in the afternoon for lunch rather than dinner. Early to bed.
Was that hard for you to change or not? Or were you just kind of curious enough that?
Interestingly, I've never been a great sleeper. I've had challenges like falling asleep, staying asleep. So that was a harder one for me. But I just said, I'm going to go to bed earlier. I started doing it. I slept beautifully. And then it was like, it'd be 6 o'clock. It's like, I got to go to bed. I can't wait to go to bed. Because I was having success sleeping. It's so frustrating if you go to bed and you can't sleep. But if you start getting a few good nights sleep, it's like, oh my God, I got to go to bed. I can't wait. So that one was harder, but turned out really well. The earlier dinner.
And you were sleeping better because you're eating earlier and fasting longer. Is that what you think? Like how it changed your melatonin circadian rhythm cycle? Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That checks
I
out.
Going to bed by 8 o'clock. And so, so those two habits were easier. Getting up and drinking hot water, scraping my tongue. The getting up before dawn, I'm still working on that being a consistent habit. Most days it is. But do
you just find your body needs more rest because of the autoimmune, like that it needs that? And I don't mean autoimmune categorically. I just mean it more of like, because your system was under a load for a long time and you didn't have good sleep for a long time and you were more in degeneration there than regeneration. And now that you're tapping into regenerative cycles, that you're like, my body needs some sleep. Yeah.
Well, I can't remember what video it was I listened to that you did, but this idea that, some people, it's going to take a year. And so I thought, I'm not going to put the pressure on myself to see all these results. If I'm not waking up like ready to go. Here comes the sun.
Yeah.
Then
Good.
I'm gonna give it a year. Like I'm gonna,
Yeah.
reset and see what happens. So that's my benchmark. So
I
I
love it.
don't
I mean,
know
that would be my
why.
advice, was like to prioritize sleep over everything. If you're going to bed at 8, like sleep as long as you want. Because you're getting in delta brainwave state. So like your physiology, especially because so much of autoimmune, including lupus, is neurodegenerative. Like you're in neuroregenerative when you're sleeping like that. So like, yeah, all day you can trade your drugs in for that good stuff. So you had a question. I want to read this question. My question is this: are others feeling, because this is in detox mode, lightheaded, in slow motion, or weak? You've been doing intermittent fasting since January, but you feel like you need to eat something in the morning. You've got your amazing group of second graders, and they're not detoxing. And so they're going at their normal level. They're probably carb loaded, go. And you said my brain is struggling to keep up with them. And I responded with eat earlier in the day, like, yes. The other thing I just want to bring up, lupus. So the different autoimmune diseases in Ayurveda, like they hit different dosha types differently. And so in the way this intersects with intermittent fasting rhythm is like lupus often goes towards pitta, and a lot do. Fibromyalgia, like pitta vata. MS is usually got a lot of pitta in it. Lupus has a lot of pitta in it. That in general, pitta types will be more likely to get a pitta type autoimmune disease, just that affinity. Energetically, because they're more challenged by heat, they'll be challenged by diseases of heat in the nerves. So for a pitta body type with intermittent fasting, like fueling earlier is better anyway, because you burn hotter. And I think this is where often like a lot of people in modern culture get in trouble with the later dinners, is like they're kind of postponing that deeper nourishment. So it's like, if left to if you lived on an island all by yourself, like when would it be natural for your body to eat? And the reason I put you on an island is like to be totally outside of cultural influence. Like the other people don't matter. When would your body want to eat? And a lot of pitta types find like main meal by 11 a.m., where that's the majority of their protein and fat. Really stabilizes the rest of the day. And then they'll have a smaller meal later if they're not in like whatever their detox mode is, but like just regularly. Like main meal by, somewhere between 10 and noon, depending on, or 10 to 1, like depending on their schedule and all that. But they'll often find that like, a little bit before midday to have the majority of my calories, like my real meal, my dinner time. And then they cruise, and their blood is fueling their brain for the rest of the day. Because pittas are often quite cognitively driven, to have that is really helpful. And then a lighter, like the lighter dinner thing, right? The lighter second meal. So that would be my answer to that question. I don't know if you have any follow-up questions you can ask.
No, I'll just say that, moving that eating window back has helped. Because I was seriously ready to leave school almost, I was like, oh my gosh, the kids are doing fine. They're doing what kids should do. And they're asking me questions and I'm like, oh, what? So I went over to Pamela's room. I walked in and she's in the villa teaching. And she goes, hey, Ms. Waite. I said, hey, she goes, what's up? I said, I think I need to eat. She said, then eat. And I said, what do I eat? And she said, your soup. So it was 10 a.m. I'm eating soup.
Yeah. Yes. Good. Eat earlier in the day.
I still feel this.
Go, Pamela.
I feel this. I don't know how to describe it except vibration, like this low level vibration in my whole body. Like I wake up with it. I have it all day. Kind of goes away at night. And I was talking to Pamela about it today, and she kind of has the same thing, and it's just really cool. But
Yeah.
it got more than that. It got really foggy head and slow motion and too much.
Yeah. So that's the difference, right? There's like a subtle, the subtle body starts waking up. That's that other, I'm writing about it in Wild Habits, and it's in a chapter called Channels. And as there's less in the digestive tract, ether element becomes more dominant. I mean, both in the digestive tract, but it also starts to open, a lot of channels get opened in the subtle body anatomy or the nervous system anatomy. And so that like that low buzz, that like low feeling good buzz, it's cool when you look at it, the hormones related to it, because it means like the fat cells are releasing triglycerides, and they're releasing these anti-inflammatory signals, and their physiology is producing like more oxytocin and serotonin. So there's a reason it feels good, like that low level. If you were on like, say you were like, say your day, instead of like being teacher to your amazing group of second graders, say your day was like, go for a walk and do 2 hours of restorative yoga and hang out in the steam shower and take a little nap and do that whole thing again, like you could handle it. Like it would build and it would continue. But when your awareness can't introvert and your awareness has to extrovert, as it does with a group of second graders, right? Then it's like, okay, no, I need something in the digestive channel. Like I need just enough.
Yeah.
And I hear you, because I don't have that dream life right now either. I have made points of doing that periodically, and I highly recommend everybody, dude, give yourself the gift of that, especially for deep healing. But yeah, I hear you. So cool. So that might be a big part of your deep DNA repair, because that's really what we're talking about is DNA repair there to reverse that diagnosis. And so that happens from the epigenetic environment into the genetic environment, which you're doing with your fasting. You're doing it all. And so it's like the next edge of that could really be accelerated by eating earlier, like really partnering with your constitution and being like, oh, okay, I need more. It's better. And I might be wrong. Like it might just be in the detox, but like it also might not be wrong. It might be good for you to, at least I always say like a little more than half the time, 4 out of 7 days, have your bigger meal before noon or around noon and just see what happens. So I have one more question for you.
Yeah.
My question for you is, for someone who's listening to this who has a scary diagnosis, or maybe it's an autoimmune diagnosis, and doesn't really know what their options are, what would you say? What would you recommend?
Doesn't know what their options are in terms of this work or out there in the
anything, like just in general, right? Because like people, okay, that's an open-ended question, but yeah, like they just don't know what their options are, because like maybe someone might hear this on a podcast, so they might never have done the challenge, they might never done the yogi detox, they might not be in Body Thrive or ever done a course, they're seeing their doctor, they have a scary diagnosis. What do you?
Yeah, I think they have. I would say connect with as many people as you can and ask questions like, what have you done? What are the questions to ask the doctor? Not just to put all your eggs in that basket, because you're going to get medicine, and then you're going to get, the effects of the medicine. You're going to get, like I did. I didn't need to get osteoporosis at 50. It's
Right.
Or I think I was a little bit older than that, but yeah, just ask the questions, because it was really finding out from other people who weren't doctors that got me to ask these questions. Like then they wanted to put me on medication for the osteoporosis, and a friend of mine said, you can build that back. You can build back bone density. I said, you can? Why didn't they tell me that?
Why did they tell me to do bone broth with this? Yeah.
So yeah, I just, just don't, I'm not saying don't trust your doctor, but I mean, just don't just put everything into that one perspective.
Yeah, I agree. We were talking about this yesterday with the, having a healing team, right? So you have your doctor, you have communities like Yoga Healer and challenges and things that come up in the community that like get you to do the harder thing, and it's easier because there's a group, and you have your local, often to me it's like your local healing team that aren't doctors and might not do this cool group community thing, but having different people on the roster, right? It's like you're the coach, who's on the roster, who's getting playing time when, and you're in the field of your awareness. It's a much better strategy. I'm glad it's working for you, Laura.
Yeah. And I will say, it's interesting. I haven't tried to talk people into this, but being in a school setting, people are, what's happening? What are you guys doing? Or like, it'll be almost the bell. It's time for all the kids to come into the school. And it's like, so how do I do this detox? It's like, well, I can't tell you that in 30 seconds, but drink some hot water. Here it is. Yeah. People are interested. And that's so much fun to see, people just trying, and they report in, I drank my hot water yesterday. It's like, good. And we're, supporting each other. But also the habits have been awesome. They've changed my teaching. The whole Kaizen approach has helped with the kids in so many ways. And it's just, what's interesting and what's neat is that, like you say, it's not just detoxing with food. It's detoxing and affecting so many parts of you. And then it connects with everything in your life. And it's just, I don't know. I just love it. I'm an integrative teacher anyway. I love just like we have on our schedule, integrated learning, so that we don't have to call it math, and we don't have to, because it's integrated. And when things connect, it's just so cool. And that's what's happening. And that's what I said, like every day is a new surprise. That's just like a gift. I don't know. It's great.
Yeah, I'm thrilled. I'm so thrilled to hear it. I am. It's cool and I just want to say too, like in your own personal research, start to look up DNA methylation and DNA repair and epigenetics. I write about it in Wild Habits. It's not out yet. It'll be out in a couple. I keep saying it'll be out in a couple weeks. It'll be out when it's out. We did have a good epigenetics conversation on the Body Thrive yesterday, but yeah, I mean that's really where it goes, and there is great science on DNA repair. So to me, it's really exciting that it's driven by diet and lifestyle. The stuff that we've known, that we've talked about at Yoga Healer for 20 years, and so cool to see. And I would say it's like, your foot on the gas pedal of how fast you heal is exactly what you're doing. It's the fasting rhythm. It's the eating earlier. It's the sleeping earlier and sleeping a lot and tapping into community, and then creating community around your habits, which it's so beautiful to hear how that's just trickled on through. Yeah, sweet. Any closing thoughts? I'm really glad we had this conversation.
Here's my closing thought. I am on vacation.
Yes. Happy spring break.
Thank you, Kate.
Yeah. See you around the community.
All right.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.